This is Tuesday Morning Grind, episode number 20. Today we have Christian Zimmerman, who is a founder here in the Atlanta area, the founder and CEO of Qoins, which is an app that helps people pay off their debt, which is pretty cool. You're also Forbes 30 under 30, which is pretty impressive. And then you guys have been featured on all sorts of stuff like USA Today, Forbes, CNN Money, and others. So it's pretty awesome, man. Thanks for being here. Excited.
Yeah, thank you, Christian. Thank you for having me. Same name, so it's always a
I
good name.
know. You're one of these guys in the Atlanta area that I've seen because you've been in the startup community, and we also share a name. So anytime I see it, it stands out to me. But if I'm not mistaken, is this your first like job out of college? You started a company, or is there anything before this? How did you get to Coins?
Yeah, I mean, so I did work at a startup right after graduating from college, but only for about I think 6 to 9 months, not too long. That was
Yeah,
HireWire. They're out of Atlanta Tech Village. So feel like I learned a lot in that short amount of time. And then like every other startup, it's mixed with a whole bunch of other entrepreneurs that want to do their own thing. And
yeah,
yeah, I just had this idea while there, and then started doing pitch practices, and that's kind of how we ran with it.
awesome. So did you always know that you were going to be an entrepreneur, or was there like a certain phase in life where you're like, I want to do this, or did you stumble into it? How did you decide to start a business?
Yeah, I've always wanted to do my own thing. I didn't never necessarily knew what exactly it would be. I've had my own, as a kid, lawn mowing company. Like I always figured out ways to make my own money. Um, and
Yeah.
so I think kind of just had that innate um, hustle. And then from there, I remember working at that startup, and I've always had the work mentality, but the CEO there was like, you know how to work smart, work hard. Now you just need to learn how to work smart. And so that's kind of like one of the things that I sought out to do, and that's why that's when I came up with Coins.
Yeah. Did you grow up in the Atlanta area? Are you a native?
Yes, I grew up in Gwinnett, so like north, north of Atlanta. So about 40
Yeah.
minutes north. But I've been in downtown Atlanta now for like the last 10 years.
Yeah. How did you come up with the idea of coins? And can you tell us about coins? What is it? How did you come up with the idea? That kind of thing.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, right, I came out of college. I guess a quick background, which will make more sense as to why I built it, was I'm Latino. My mom's from El Salvador, first generation American. First one to go to college. First one to graduate. A lot of like first ups for my
Yep.
family, and so um, one of the
Similar
big things
background
is that
myself. Yep.
yeah, and so there's a lot big responsibility, but at the same time, there's also like a lot of failures or mistakes that you make, and so one of them was me taking out personal loans to graduate. So obviously, student loans are not as bad, but taking out personal loans to pay for tuition was not the greatest idea because they had super high interest rates, and um, so yeah, 6 months, 9 months after graduating, I get hit with those bills, and I'm kind of just uh, I'm terrified. I'm like, that's so much money. I need to figure out how to start paying down. So I started using
Hmm.
products like Acorns, Capital, Digit, all like really good savings and investment apps, but it still didn't really hit the nail on the head with regards to my problem, which is how do I pay down these debts faster? How do I make more payments every month? How do I reduce overall interest rate? And so that's kind of what I sought out to build. Was originally just focus on student loans and personal loans, and now has kind of grown into being a full financial wellness solution. But yeah, it was a personal pain point of mine, and I wanted to try to build something off of it. Didn't think it was going to become a business per se, but at the same time, one of my goals that year was to learn how to public speak, and there was this pitch competition at that same time that had come up with this idea, and so kind of
Yeah.
just all kind of fell into place.
That's awesome, man. So most folks coming out of college, they're thinking about going to a big company, a big consulting company, and the idea of either working at a startup or especially starting your own business is frightening. It was for me. Like I went big firm, then later started a business. What do you think gave you the guts to like, you had your loan stuff, you were obviously inspired to do it, but at the end of the day, you had to take the risk and believe in yourself to start a business. Like, what was that journey like to take the leap? Did it feel scary at the time, or how was that?
Yeah, I mean a little bit, but not so much. After like, my parents are really religious, and so like I remember wanting to quit and try to do my own thing, but I had no plans. My parents were
Yeah.
like, you'll get like two like if it's meant to be, you'll get like two signs, and like literally like that same week, that company, or Hirewire, they ended up like letting me go, but they let me go like on great terms. They're like, hey, we're letting you go, and we're gonna pay you for the rest of the month so you can figure stuff out. And then literally right after I left, a friend of mine had called me and was like, hey, there's this part-time job you can do while you're trying to do whatever else you want to do, and they'll pay you like full-time salary. And so it was like double whammy, like literally just like said like, hey, you shouldn't be working here. Hey, here's some job that will help pay for all your bills, and hey, go work on this. And to make matters worse, but better at the same time, was that same kind of during that same time period, I had also I have a heart condition, so I've had open heart surgery 2 times, and I'll probably have like a third in the future. But I had got this heart infection and got stuck in the hospital for about a week, and I think that's really when it clicked. I was just like, I wasn't really worried about like any other potential issues that could come, because if I my health is the most important thing at the end of the day. And so like I felt like I had hit rock bottom, and at that point I was just like, there's really like nothing that could stop me from doing whatever it is I want to do.
Yeah. I think I read like a tweet or something from David Cummings here out of Atlanta, was like, if you want to invest in a founder, like find someone who's like had a tough childhood or has some evidence of grit, because they'll pull forward. And I know a ton of founders with a similar type story, and they had like a lot to overcome. So it's like the startup thing isn't as scary when you have like real problems in the world. So maybe there's some of that to it. So you started Qoins. It was you and a co-founder. Is that the first two? Is that how it went?
Yeah, so I had initially come up with the idea, kind of again going back to that pitch competition. That was like the initial MVP of what I had built out. I didn't win or anything, so I had already gotten the drive to want to build it, but I couldn't build per se. I couldn't build the product itself. So that's when I met Nate. We met at a networking event, it just so randomly, but we hit it off really well, and we've been working together ever since.
Is he the technical part of the co-founding group?
Yeah, so Nate Washington, he's our CTO, co-founder CTO.
Awesome. Yeah. So a lot of folks, I talk to a lot of young founders, including myself, and like one of the questions is like, how do you get going? Because you're pre-revenue, you got to build a product, you got to do product market fit. There's a lot that goes into that. So how did you go about like getting your first couple customers? Was it just building it and putting it on the app store and seeing what happened, or how did you test that out?
No, so we actually started off with a landing page. So the initial phase of testing was like what I had built out, which was just a quick landing page on Unbounce, a video that I made on Fiverr, a script that a friend had helped me create, and then like a waiting list that we built out through Google Sheets. And that was how we started. So we try to capture people to sign up, and we got a few hundred people signing up, right out the gate, which was crazy. And then once I met Nate, then we built out a website. So we bought the URL. We had launched on the web version of our app, and then once we were live, like one of the things we were getting was feedback, right? Understanding what it is that they truly wanted, and a mobile app was like what they really wanted in their hands. And so that was of January 2017 is when we fully launched like our mobile version of the app.
So you started a website that had a landing page and a video that you made on Fiverr, and I was kind of like drumming up hype. People came to that website and was like, "Oh, this looks cool. I want this when it comes out." And then you were harvesting the leads via a Google Sheet, and you're like, "I got a couple hundred," and you built out the app, and then those are your first customers, essentially. Is that right? Is that what you're describing? That's awesome, man. Did you expect to like get a couple hundred signups off that website, or was that surprising?
Yeah, I didn't expect to get as many as like I thought maybe like, they always typically say like your friends and family are the ones signing up, but like I had made it at a point to like not really share it to my friends and family. Like I wanted to find like who like would actually sign up, right? So like one thing I did do was I spent like $25 on Facebook at the time to like just see people to go to my website. And so that was interesting to see that, little money was able to go a long way for the waiting list. But yeah, it was really cool. I mean, again, it's something that had come from my mind to now having a simple product, and getting that interaction obviously gets you excited.
Yeah, that's entrepreneurship, man. Just that craftiness to get those like guerrilla marketing going. So you got, how did you do Fiverr? I've actually talked to a lot of people. This is like a common thing I'm realizing is like the early days, like with the gig economy, people are able to produce some pretty cool marketing stuff using like Fiverr and stuff. So did you just publish an app? Did you come up with the whole creative concept and just outsource the technical development part of it, or how did that work?
Yeah, so I had found this lady on Fiverr who would do like a sketch, right? You would have to
Yeah.
give the script and then like the logo and everything, but everything else from there she would like the production side she would build out and she would do the voiceover. So literally a friend of mine was really big into content creation, and so he was like, "Yo, I'll write up a skit for you," and it had to be 30 seconds. And so he wrote it up for me, and then my other friend had helped me with like design, and that's how we got started. So I just submitted that, and then like within 2 days I got it back, and it came out
That's
really good.
awesome.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's amazing.
Fiverr was a
So,
good place to start.
do you remember how much you spent on it back in the day?
35 bucks.
Dang, that's crazy. Like what you can accomplish with shoestring budget. How did you build the website? Did you do that yourself, or did you do like
Yeah,
outsource that?
the initial website I built out myself as well. I used Unbalanced, and it was free for like 90 days. So
Yep.
that's what I used to for the pitch competition and everything to get started. See, the thing was the pitch competition wasn't just like a pitch. I had to show traction. I had to show something, and when I applied, I had nothing. So I had 30 days to try to show traction, a website, an
Yeah.
infographic, and so like I just did all of that so quickly, and so I got so boggled down into the product that I know. I mean, I got to kind of jumpstart a lot of these things pretty quickly.
How much do you think you spent on like your first pitch, like that whole getting harvesting your initial leads, a website, Fiverr, and all that?
Total, yeah, like less than $100.
Dude, you need to write an ebook on that. Like, cause the niche you're in with like financial savings, like how to start a business with $100. That's awesome, man.
Yeah,
That's the whole spirit of like coins to me is like saving money and
yeah.
stuff. I like that. So you've been at this what 5 years now? Is that about right?
4 year. This is our fourth year now. So like 2016 was like off and on. Like we were, again, I was working on other things, trying to just make ends meet.
Yeah.
But 2017 is when we like officially launched. I kind of just put all into coins. So since 2017, I've been working on coins.
Yeah. So kind of sticking, I love the customer acquisition because B2C is foreign to me because I mostly do B2B. But how has it changed in terms of customer acquisition? Are you still doing like a lot of Facebook type ads, a lot of social media, or is there other kind of stuff working for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we've definitely found is, B2C is expensive, right? The costs on these digital platforms have gone up exponentially over the last few
Mm,
years. Our typical cost to acquire a customer has gone up, from what we had originally identified as being a good CPA. And so, yeah, I mean, we still do like Facebook, Instagram, Google keywords, ads, UAC campaigns, but one of the things that we're looking to do now is build out partnerships. So, with COVID, that was a little bit more difficult. Everyone was kind of just figuring things
yep.
out. But we saw a good opportunity going into this year to start trying to figure out ways to build out relationships with like credit unions or FIs that could work with us through like a offsite access kind of relationship where we are offering this our solution to their customers. They can get a specific code that they can log into, and so that's something that we're trying to drive this year to drive big buckets of customers. We know that they are, and give them the value of coins by working with a credit union or another FI.
Mm, yeah. I know you, you mentioned, I know the app part of it is, I think, I remember it kind of rounds off some of the spend to go to savings and paying off debt. And you mentioned you guys are thinking about like debit card situation. Can you talk about like how's the app evolving? Because you mentioned it's kind of full stack financial services now. What is that looking like?
Yeah, this is a very exciting year because one, like when you get capital, you have to start figuring out what's the best way of using it, and obviously human capital gets very expensive very quickly. So how do
Yeah.
you drive that as quickly as you can on the product side? And so some of the big things that we've evolved from then to now was again at before was just debt repayments. Started off student loans, credit cards, and now student loans, credit cards, auto loans, mortgages. And then kind of fast forward to today, we're like a full financial wellness suite. So we had financial coaching like during COVID to help customers during that time. Now we have savings goals that allow customers that have paid off their debts to also work with us in the savings methods. We have multiple ways of savings. you mentioned roundups. We have payroll deductions, smart savings, weekly withdrawals, really whatever, best fits the customer's needs. And then what you alluded to as well, the Coins card, which we plan on rolling out later this year, which will be kind of our stab at really kind of building out this model where we're combining both credits and debits. And I think that's just something that hasn't really been built out in one place. And we're not necessarily trying to become a bank, but a lot of the functionalities that banks have kind of tie into what we've been doing. And so that's why we think that giving someone a full scope is to all their credits, all the debts in one account, and then also having their bank account or direct deposits in one place will give you like the best scope as to how you are from a debt to income ratio, full financial scope. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing.
Yeah. Where are you coming up with strategy and stuff? Because I think I saw you have like 10 team members. You're obviously CEO. I'm astounded at this. Is like you never went big consulting or anything before this. You're just an entrepreneurial genius, I'll call it, that started a business right out of college. Who does strategy for you guys? Like I imagine you're wearing lots of hats. You're doing brand, you're doing marketing, you're doing sales and engineering and strategy. But how are you thinking up these kind of ideas? Is this just customer feedback or just spawning out of your brain?
Yeah, it's a mix of both for sure. Like, I in the past have tried to like really connect with our customers. Like I'll call them and just, if they sign up, say thank you. If they just finish paying off their debts, figure out like what else we could be doing to help them. And then from the product side, right, we always understand like where there might be some bottlenecks that we can be improving on. And then from a cost side, yeah, I think I'm always looking at what's next, what's out there. Yeah, I mean, from a strategy perspective, I'd say like Nate and I are like can work cohesively there. Always have the big picture kind of mentality, and he's very much methodical about how we go about building out and implementing the strategies. But yeah, I really kind of use my board of directors as a sounding board to identify like what makes sense, what doesn't. But our goal, I'm telling you, when I first started, like I was just be a fanatic, stay up till 3, 4, 5 a.m. just like drawing out like what I hope Coins will become in the future. And I had
Yeah.
a full like spider web that like we would start with debt, then have savings, then have a card, then long term be kind of manage the loans themselves, because we understand how we're de-risking the customer for the lenders. Why can't we help the customer save money instantly by helping them reduce interest rates on the loans themselves?
That's awesome, man. Talk to me about you guys are really good at getting press. So like a quick Google search, I saw like 30 under 30, which is cool. CNN, all that stuff. Who does that for you guys? You outsource it, or is that you kind of just reaching out and being crafty? How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, I mean, that's all kind of just organic nowadays. Yeah, I get that a lot. And, when we first started, I did use tools like Haro, help a reporter out. And, that's obviously cold emails and cold reach outs. But yeah, I think that's one thing we've been very good at is getting press. Our story resonates really well, especially with COVID now being, or
Yeah.
debt in general being much more of a topic of discussion than it typically had been before. But yeah, I mean, we granted, I did hire an agency before. It didn't really work out because I figured I could still do more on my own. So,
Sure.
yeah, I mean, I think when you create a good brand, you can create a good story, then, a lot of the leads will come to you.
Were you sending like direct email to like reporters and press just because your story's pretty compelling in terms of what you do? Was that how it went? Just straight emails? I have a story to tell.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
kind of thing.
I tell people all the time, like, I think I got pretty lucky when it comes to cold email. Like, I have whole templates now that I've built out myself for cold emailing, both on LinkedIn. Like, LinkedIn is like, I've got all my massive investments have come through LinkedIn. I think some of my larger press releases have come through LinkedIn. And it's just because, yeah, I think one thing people forget is we're human. We like to interact with people. If you can do it in a way that seems normal, isn't salesy or spammy, then
Yeah.
you'll get a response back.
Yeah. I've noticed that like if you authentically reach out and ask, like people often say yes.
Yeah.
There's a shortage of people asking. Just
Yeah,
ask.
it's not just
Um,
asking once. Like the other thing is, people are busy. So there's like also like a good mix of like how often and the frequency as to how
yep.
often you're reaching out to someone. People like me personally, I like people that, are reaching out if they're, on a mission to get something done, right? And it makes sense because that's the way, that's how I did it as well. So,
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk about two things. I want to talk about CEOing because that's an interesting thing. I want to see how that's going. And also the fact that you guys got some capital. I'd love to hear like what your plans are with that. But it sounds like you guys went from, you and a co-founder and you're kind of growing the team out and maybe a bootstrap way today. How do you spend your time as a startup CEO running a SaaS company? What's your day-to-day look like?
yeah, I think, well, one, like the role of a CEO I feel like has changed since like when I first started to now, because obviously we have a bigger team and,
Yep.
um, all the different buckets that a CEO has is also like something that I'm forever learning and getting better at. But my day to day is really driven around like I try to use the first couple hours to regroup with my teammates individually, figure out what my plan is for the day, like what has high priority, medium priority, low priority. I try to write down as much as I can. That's the only way I remember. But I think from now from before, like I'm definitely in way more meetings than I am on actually like day to day activities. So they have teammates that
Yep.
are doing that. And now it's more about how do I empower and give that leadership ability to the rest of my teammates in their respective roles to execute and make the best decisions and come back to me to and give me those reasons why we should be going this way or that way. But I try to give almost all of our teammates autonomy as to like where their roles are. I don't like to macromanage per se, but I do look for people that are self-taught or driven on their own, kind of looking to grow in their role as well. Um, but I think one of the best things that I've done over the last year was during COVID was I started doing self development courses or coaching, and that's been super big for me because as CEO, like at the end of the day, like the responsibility falls on you if things don't go the right way. And pandemic is very stressful time
Yeah.
in a business, right? You're trying to make sure that everyone's getting paid, everyone's getting fed, and so that was a very stressful time for us. But we were able to make the right decisions, and I think one of the big things that I attribute to that is having done the personal development coaching, because it was able to help me identify what I can work on, so then I can actually, if I can't grow, then how can I grow my other teammates?
Yeah. Was this like self-service or do you have a coach or a founders group? What does that look like?
Uh, no, I have a coach that I worked with like on a week. I still work with him on a weekly basis. It's funny. It's actually like one of our investors, but at the time, I just wanted him for an investment deal. But he mentioned like, hey, I do, you know, personal development coaching, and I was like, let's try it out. I never believed in that stuff. I was like, you should be able to figure these things out, but I just was hitting
Yeah.
huge roadblocks, and I was able to overcome those roadblocks very quickly once I started.
Yep. We have a coaching program at Risk 360 too. The leaders get a coach. We're only about 30 people, so still a pretty small team. But if you're a leader in the business, then you're a coach of some of the other team members, and then the leaders in the business have coaches too. And I was kind of a similar ilk in that very do-it-yourself kind of mentality. But I was at big consulting ahead of this, and they gave you a coach there that was typically a partner at the firm, so I kind of learned to appreciate it. Is it
Yeah.
what's the format? Is it guided? Is it very customized? So this is a professional coach, I guess.
Mhm.
Can you talk about like what does a session look like? Is it just chatting and putting career plans together? What does that look like?
No, so like there's this book that first we read, and there's like big pieces to the personal development, like that really apply to all works of all parts of your life. But you can apply it very well to work because half of your life is work. But it goes through different pieces, so like clarity, energy, courage, um, productivity, what else? Influence. I think there's one
Cool.
more. But yeah, you go over like these big buckets, and then from there you identify like how has this week, what were the things in those buckets for this week. But they make it very personalized. I really like it because typically
Very cool.
a piece will go into the week that I may have been struggling on something.
Yeah, we read these two books. One called Traction by a guy named Gino Wickman, and another called Scaling Up by a guy named Vern Harnish. If you haven't read those, recommend them. We kind of built some of our business processes around them pretty good.
Yeah.
Um, how do you think, like, what's your plans for Qoins? So small team, hopefully, are you trying to keep it lean but grow it? Do you see you guys being a several hundred person company at some point? What's your vision there?
Yeah, from a team perspective, I think keeping it lean is just kind of how I've always had it and how I'd like it. I don't know that yeah, I mean, I would love to have like 100-person team. I don't know that we would need to get to that size, but from a long term vision, like I think our end goal has always been how do we create a 10x better product that we can then kind of sell to a large FI or credit union or other fintech that kind of works in tandem to what we're
Yeah.
doing. And so that's always been our end goal. And timeline wise, 3 to 5 years has always been kind of the time frame. And so we're going into year 4 now, and I think we're just now hitting good sprints,
Yeah.
both from the personal side and from the business side. And I think part of it attributes to I've never done this before, so it's taken me a little while to get to a certain point where I am starting to understand like a lot of the key pieces.
Yeah, we consult with a lot of startups. Like so, Cabbage has one of our clients before they exited to Amex, and I think it took them 11 or 12 years. So like every great startup is like 10 years in the making. It always takes longer than you think.
Yeah.
So you got some capital. That awesome. Congratulations. Sounds exciting. I'd love to know like what was the journey on. A, I want to know how you got it, and B, I want to know how you want to spend it. So did you go around and do the circuits and pitch to a ton of investors, or was it pretty easy to obtain? What was that process like?
Yeah, so like again, like prior to my personal development, like I just felt like I wasn't doing. I was having hundreds of meetings, and they were all just ending in the same way. And so I say we made some big changes, like to our pricing, and then also one of the big things I started kind of just emphasizing was having someone in-house for finance. So like have someone that can build out these models that let the numbers really speak for themselves. So less about the story, because I know we're getting to a point in the business where yeah, you like me as the founder, but how do I grow this business now? Like it's not just
Yeah,
the
as a
story
scale,
anymore.
right? Has to
Yeah,
make financial sense. Yeah,
exactly. And so we made those big changes. And once we made those, from the time that I started the coaching to the time we finished, it was like less than 6 months. So it was much faster than I had initially anticipated. I would say probably more like 3 months, um, but like I said, just from like the making those big hefty changes to then like really start going back into having those conversations. Again, it was another cold email that I had done, and it worked out
yeah.
really well.
Do you chalk that up to like business model changes, where you like adjust pricing a little bit or pricing model to prove out some scalability? Was that really what it came down to?
Yeah, so margins was always a big thing, right? Typically in this space it was all about scale, but with COVID it was like how do you make your business, pandemic proof? And
Yep.
so we made some changes on pricing. We had made some changes on some of our back end costs, and though I would say those are the two biggest things. And then like now that we've raised the money, the capital's like how do we generate more forms of revenue? And that's really what it's going to be used for. So product heavy intensive.
Yep. So I don't know if you can disclose how much capital you got, but at least do you have like plans to spend it? It sounds like product development. Um, how do you plan on kind of using the capital?
Yeah. So we raised 1.5. So today we've raised like 2.2, and so that money is currently being used for both staff, right? So personal,
Yep.
or bringing people in to really focus on product, and then the main other piece is marketing. So last year we did no marketing, and we're still able to grow. We pretty much stayed kind of flatline, which was good. Rather than going backwards, right? And then this year we're really trying to hit some big benchmarks for the year, as well as make some big changes to the product. Kind of
Yep.
again, card is a very capital intensive upfront cost that we
Yep.
obviously would be using that capital for.
Yeah. Who do you guys market to? Is it kind of like a certain age group or a demographic or anything like that that's using the app, or do you guys have a sense
Yeah,
for that?
25 to 34 is kind of our sweet spot. And the reason being is, right, I'm 28. I just got married. I just bought a house. And so like right after
Congratulations.
college, thank you. Right after college, you're not really thinking about that too much, but as you start thinking
Yeah.
about those other big things, like all your financial issues kind of come back to frontline, and you're trying to solve all of those. So, I think that's kind of why we see a lot of that age range really fall, really like our product.
Yeah. How does that change y'all's marketing? Are you like targeting Facebook ads or just kind of like language and stuff? Do you think about that when you're trying to acquire clients?
Yeah, we've really started to start segmenting out how we market because, within that range, obviously we have multiple goals that you can be doing with, for paying off debt. Like what type of debt is it you're trying to pay off? Are you looking to buy a home soon? Like, so we'll target in that fashion. We're trying to get
Yep.
very, very granular with it now, but again, the cost of it has gone up too. So that's why I think partnership, going back to the partnerships piece, they're able to drive those at a much lower cost.
Yep. That makes sense. What about growing the team? Are you kind of prepared to manage a team that's double the size? Are you thinking about those kind of CEO dynamics about how to manage a bigger team?
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely takes, team effort, and I've tried to just make it a habit of like reaching out to everyone individually, depending on like even if you don't necessarily report to me or more so report on the product side, just to build a strong culture, build a culture of like openness, people being transparent about how they're feeling, where they want to go, what their goals may be for the business and for themselves. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, it's definitely tough, but at the same time, it's exciting because you start to see more people kind of driven to your product, your mission. They have trust in you as a CEO that you're gonna hopefully have a paycheck for them. So,
Yep.
um, yeah, I mean, if anything, it just keeps me up at night, making sure that I am doing the right things and am using my time wisely to make sure I'm doing those things properly.
Yep. So, in general, we have a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to this. So I always like to cover like a few like insider tricks. Um, what can you talk about your technology stack? I always think that's interesting. Like, are you, for email, for CRM, or using like Gmail? Can you just talk about like how do you run the business behind the scenes?
Yeah, and the behind the scene wise, yeah, I mean, we've been working with Google, pretty much for everything, like from the email
Yep.
side, right? Google Drive. We've been using Mailchimp, which is another great Atlanta company
Yep.
for email marketing.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah, I would say like it's all the big ones that everyone probably starts out with, like Twilio for push notifications. Um,
Yep.
we work with Stripe for subscriptions. So yeah, I mean, from a community, and obviously Slack, everyone uses Slack. So we've
Yep.
really big on Slack and communicating with everyone in Zoom to talk with everyone nowadays.
Nice. What about so you're out of Atlanta here. We work with a lot of Atlanta startups, like I mentioned earlier, and I hear very good things about like the Atlanta startup community. Because I think people tend to think Silicon Valley when it comes to startups. How has your experience been as far as community, access to capital, resources, all that kind of stuff? As an Atlanta startup, has it been positive, negative?
I would say that from a community standpoint, I love it. Like I think everyone here is very supportive of one another. I think there's your own little buckets, kind of depending on what part of the ecosystem you're in. Are you SaaS? Are you B2B? Are you B2C? And so you can kind of identify those pockets fairly quickly. Um,
Yep.
from a community standpoint, I think it's amazing. And you also have like big corporate sponsors here that really kind of have been putting their money where their mouth is. Going, as I mentioned, Google has been very supportive of us from the get go. Joel has been amazing with working with us, and you know Joey Womack, a whole bunch of there's names
Yeah.
everyone. There's so many programs that are out here that are doing amazing things. And then from the financing standpoint, I think that's changing. I haven't had the best of luck here in Atlanta, but I'm just now starting to. There's a few angel investors that have invested in our company. A few funds now that are just now getting out in investing B2C, but B2C is also like not necessarily popular in Atlanta. B2B SaaS is
Yep.
very popular, so that was just another thing that we're finding. But but you're seeing that change. You're seeing the changes happen. You've seen a few funds kind of open up over time over the last couple of years to start addressing that, and I think that's what we need. So I like that we're having good open conversations about that.
Yeah. What about like people in terms of like finding people who want and are willing to work for a startup? Has that been challenging, or have you been able to find people pretty easily? How's that been?
Yeah, finding people haven't really been really hard. Again, we have three really good, or four, five, six amazing university systems, right? You have HBCUs, you have Georgia State, you have Tech, you have UGA,
Yep.
and they all work with Emory. They all work really well, and they have students that are coming out every year that are very talented. So, I went to Georgia State, so I typically gravitate towards hiring students that are coming out of Georgia State. But yeah, I mean, I think the talent's here. I think the good thing with COVID now is or the work from home is that you can get talent anywhere. But it's still nice to be able to see people in person and meet up.
Definitely. Are you guys still remote? How are you guys handling COVID? Is it impacting you guys as far as work and culture at all, or how have you navigated that?
Yeah, we moved to all remote kind of situation as of like this time last year is when we made the change.
Yeah.
One, obviously, we just weren't going to the office. We have people that live in like Kennesaw and in Suwanee, and so outskirts of Atlanta. So we
Yep.
just
Yep.
made it, better to just work from home. But I think from a work balance, like I think more people we're getting more work done. I think now because there's less time in traffic, less time. You can just meet up and hit someone up on Zoom or Slack very quickly for
Yep.
questions.
Yep.
But from a culture standpoint, yeah, we're still that's something I think is always working. Is what's a good cadence of like communicating with your teammates versus like overdoing it? My wife works in the other room, and I know I feel like maybe communicate too much, right? I think there's also you can overdo it, and you can also underdo it. So how do you still
Yep.
keep that balance?
What's y'all's meeting rhythms like? Do you guys have like a weekly touch point, daily touch points? What does that
Yes,
look
we have
like?
weekly touch points with the whole team, and then I'll have weekly touch points separately with everyone throughout the week.
Cool. And do you guys, is that weekly like just a stand up meeting? You're doing 30, or do you have like a set agenda? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's 30, but it has a set agenda, and it's typically like how did last week go? What are we working on this week? And then how are we hitting any of the goals that we're trying to hit for the month or for the quarter?
Awesome. Last question, man. You've bootstrapped your way through this, started a company, been successful in getting some traction. Now you're getting capital. Sounds like for the second time. Awesome. So, if you had to do this over again, and you're kind of giving advice to another young founder, is there anything you'd change or any advice that you'd give to help someone get a head start?
Yeah, it probably would have been. I would say, I think understanding if you're trying to raise, I think first is how do you want to run your business? Do you want to bootstrap it or do you want to raise capital? Because I think that definitely drives how
Yep.
you operate your business. I think that'd be my first thing I would have like given myself advice on. And then the second is if you are going the capital route, how are you going to like who are you going to target? Like I wasted a lot of time my first year talking to the wrong investors, not necessarily I just didn't know. Like I thought,
Yeah.
all investors invested in everything, but they definitely have focus points. And Atlanta was just like, at that time just not doing B2C. So when I started looking outside of Atlanta, doors started to open. But it took me that a little longer than expected for me to understand that. So I would say, do your homework on like what that looks like. What is your approach for your business? And I think if you create a solid plan from the get go, it'll definitely help you with navigating those waters.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, man, it's been awesome. Thank you for your time and best of luck. I can't wait to watch you guys grow and become an Atlanta staple. I'm sure Coins will, I'll see it on the billboard sometime in the next couple of years. So thanks again, man. I appreciate it. If you enjoyed this podcast and you enjoy hearing the stories of other entrepreneurs, you can subscribe to Tuesday Morning Grind on any podcast app, Spotify, Apple Store, or we have a YouTube channel that you can Google Risk 360 and check us out. Christian, what's the best way if people want to check out Coins?
Yeah, if you want to check out Qoins, you can go to qoins.com, Qoins. People always misspell it, no U, qoins.com. or .io. We just got the .com URL, so excited about that. But yeah, that's our website, and then again at Qoins app on all of our social media.
Awesome. Thanks, Christian. Talk soon, man.
Thanks, Christian. Have a good one.